for New York. And sending a
Welcome
message
to this week's edition of New York Now. I'm Daryl Camp, in for Dan Clark. We now know who is going to be filling 2 seats on New York's highest court, the Court of Appeals. This week, Governor Andrew Cuomo announced his 2 picks for the court. Those are Nassau County District Attorney Madeleine Tsingis and Justice Anthony Cannataro, the administrative judge of the New York City Civil Court. Tsingis would be replacing Justice Leslie Stein, who's retiring next month, while Cannataro would be replacing Justice Paul Fineman, who died earlier this year. And at the same time, Cuomo said this week that the Joint Commission on Public Ethics, created by him, is in need of significant change. Here to talk about those stories are Zach Williams from the City and State magazine and Dave Lombardo from the Capitol Press Room. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So Dave, I'm going to go to you first. What are people saying about these 2 appointees?
Well, they're not saying much at all about Judge Anthony Cannataro, so we're just going to move past him and move to the highlight, which is Nassau County District Attorney Madeleine Tsingis. She is someone people know largely because of her role looking into Eric Schneiderman at the behest of Governor Andrew Cuomo, and we heard some real pushback against her from liberals in New York, especially the Criminal Defense Lawyers Association of New York State, who say right now someone like her with her background and her focus on putting people away as opposed to, say, restorative justice or more progressive criminal justice issues, she's not the right person. And normally we see this process, the Senate confirmation of judges, as a real rubber stamp in New York. Maybe there's a little pushback against her, but we'll have to see in the final 2 weeks of the legislative session.
So I'm curious, Zach, do you think there's going to be pushback because the person who appointed these 2 appointees is in a lot of hot water right now?
Time is running out. The state Senate only has until June 10th to approve this year. The key date is really August 2nd. If Tsingis gets appointed by that date and resigns as DA, that would trigger a special election to replace her by November. And it's always election time at city and state. Everyone's looking at State Senator Todd Kaminsky, who might be interested. A spokesperson for him didn't exactly say he ruled out a run. And I'm also curious, per Dave's comments, what the political left might put up if a special election is triggered, if all these dominoes fall in time to trigger that special election.
Well, so, and just hanging over all of this is the fact that, potentially further down the road, if there's ever a trial to remove Governor Andrew Cuomo from office, these 2 appointees, if they're confirmed and take the bench in time, could potentially serve on a trial that would be about removing the governor from office. So there's that interesting conflict. And whether the Senate even wants to confirm anyone from the governor who they are saying, a majority of Democrats say should resign.
So another major issue that's going on right now is ethics reform. It has always been a major topic in New York because of the perception of incessant corruption here.
Perception?
Perception, yeah, I should say. The evidence, the proof's in the pudding. But the Senate moved on that this week, and the Assembly didn't exactly. Zach, I want to go to you first on this one. What exactly happened as far as ethics reform goes?
I think we're just seeing that the 2 chambers going their separate way. The state Senate has really moved forward, which one might say is maybe trying to prod the Assembly to do the same. But I think if we're talking about replacing Jay Cope in a definitive way, it's going to probably take until next year. There's a constitutional amendment that's been proposed, but it's been kind of going through the works. Actually, one of the key reasons why it hasn't passed was determining how it would deal with sexual harassment allegations against people in the executive branch in the future. There's so many different things that have to be figured out to set up a new public integrity commission, who would appoint it or appoint its members, and exactly who would be able to investigate still remains very much up in the air, but it would take a constitutional amendment to really definitively replace Jay Cope, and that means it would have to pass the legislature this year, and then in the next legislature, and then go before the voters that following November.
Now, Dave, something that I found interesting was what the governor said about Jay Cope. I think Zach Fink had asked him about it at a press conference, and he went on like a 3 to 5 minute rant about how it's essentially useless. What was your take on that? Why do you think he took that position?
I think he used the term, and meaningless is the one he threw out there, and which is hilarious because this is a body that he created 10 years ago with the help of the legislative leaders at the time, both of whom have now gone to jail for corruption. And I think he's just sort of throwing out some terms right now because it's popular. I mean, there's nothing wrong with him saying, yeah, we need to reform JCOPE. He's not going to be lifting a finger to do anything about it, because right now JCOPE upholds the status quo in Albany, and that's good for him, that's good for the legislative leaders, who I also don't think have a huge amount of interest in reforming this body. And the only people who have to be afraid of JCOPE are people who are already on their way out. They don't, no case has ever been brought by JCOPE that's like, wow, they're going after this person. It's, wow, that person is resigning right now, and oh, JCOPE's going after them. That's great. So I think the governor was basically just feeling a little on the defensive, and he's sometimes seen as the person holding up JCOPE. So I think he just felt like, I'll just throw out some word salad.
And it's interesting that you mentioned the legislative leader's role in this. Cuomo loves to point out, and I believe he did the other day, that, well, if they want to replace it, then they got to replace it in a way where people can investigate them. Obviously, it's the legislator's fault that nothing has changed, not me, the governor, that established this way back when with the legislative leaders at that time.
Speaking of ethics and the governor, I'll toss this to you first, Zach. I didn't pass the bar, but I know a little bit, and everybody's public opinion is that the lawyers are the ones who always win when it comes to any legal action. So, that being said, we got a bit of an update, if you want to call it that, on the impeachment probe, and the update was about money, for the most part. That was the big headline. What are we getting?
Well, the Assembly Judiciary Committee has faced some criticism for a supposed $250,000 cap on the money allocated to hire outside lawyers to investigate the governor. Thank goodness, poor lawyers alert, their help is on the way. Judiciary Chair Charles Levine said that this cap it is a cap, but you can have many caps. And there could be another cap that is above that $250,000. So more money is on the way. More lawyers can cash in on this. But in all seriousness, I think the big thing is, you have to balance the need to have a serious investigation with the need to be quick enough so that the public just doesn't lose interest in this. There's a lot of criticism on Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie for kind of carrying the governor's water on this slow-walking investigation that may or may not conclude anytime soon. Meanwhile, we have the Attorney General's investigation of the governor, federal investigation, so many investigations, and people just want to make sure that the impeachment investigation is moving in a prompt fashion that could lead to a possible impeachment and removal of the governor, pending a trial with impeachment trial. But so many moving parts, people just want the Assembly to get going.
Dave, I'm curious, how much could we end up spending as taxpayers on this probe?
Well, if you play out the string the way Chuck Levine has envisioned, in which he thinks there's a potential for this investigation to take months, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I think that the assembly process is going to be accelerated in June, when I think we're going to finally get at least an interim report from the Attorney General's investigation. And I think that's going to really set the agenda, and if things don't move from there, then I guess we could see potentially the Assembly taking its sweet time and spending, $750,000, $1 million. But I think this whole situation, the whole dynamic is going to really change in 2 to 3 weeks.
And I think the update was they spoke to 5 additional people compared to the previous update, and they had only received maybe less than 100 additional tips, so it seems like it's slowing down on that front. Just one more thing. The Senate acted on sexual harassment this week. Is that significant?
It's significant if the Assembly follows suit, and we actually have some laws, but right now they're just one-house press releases.
Okay, and Zach, your position on that?
I think the Assembly showed that it's not going to be moving quick on this. The Speaker did appoint a new task force to discuss sexual harassment reforms. That's Albany speak for we're not going to do it now, we're going to do it later.
All right. We have Dave, we've got Zach. I appreciate both of you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.